You are the first one. The very first one. What's going on? Oh, we're gonna wait till we get a few more people in here before we start taking care of this guy. It's a little impromptu live. I'll do the old foil trick that everybody hates so much. Now, you know what? As far as filling the tube with argon, I don't do it all the time. If I'm doing like stainless repairs or I'm doing a quick exhaust on a vehicle that's already got used piping and crap on it, a lot of times I don't bother. But on brand new stuff and stuff that you want to stay nice and stuff that's got to be durable, yeah, absolutely. 100% of the time I do it. And this is the method that everybody loves to hate. See, we do have these little guys, these purge plugs, but the problem is with pie cuts, when you put these purge plugs in the end, they get a little toasty and you burn the hell out of them. So foil it is, which works just fine. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. What's up, Richie? I buy everything from Stainless Bros and Tycon Industries. Stuff's not cheap. These materials are definitely not cheap, especially these the pie cuts, the laser cut pie cuts are not cheap. But the material is well worth it. It's pretty much pre-polished, it's ready to go. All you got to do is weld it, clean it up a little bit, and you're on your way. So we're going to fill this with some argon, and we're going to weld this up. I figured, why not go live? See how many people we can get in here. We got 6. Thank you guys for joining. Appreciate it very much so. If you have questions, fire them away. I'll answer them as best I can in between welding this piece of pipe together. Let's see if we can get a little bit better of a... There we go. Now at least you guys can see the welding, I hope. So we'll start filling this thing with argon. Sorry if it gets a little loud. The water cooler on this welder is super loud. Alright, so what's cool is at the angle you guys are at right now, as I rotate this and go through the welding process, you'll be able to see it. Oh, very cool, man. Yeah, feel free to stop by the shop at any point. Richie, flux core, you're gonna have a hard time running a nice speed. That's just the way it is. It's messy, it's disgusting, and it's tough. As far as just regular mid goes, it's actually not too bad. Regular MIG, once you build a technique, you'll get pretty good at it. It just takes time. You guys see where I put my gloves? I'm always losing something. Let me go find those. Where did I put them? Be right back. All right, got our gloves. Yeah, you guys will get to see as I rotate this, you'll see the welds coming through. Do a quick sharpen on the tungsten because can't really see it, but it's looking kind of gnarly. What's up, man? Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. All right, we're rocking our Monster Furic BBW. See if we can lay down some nice ones for you guys. All right, hey, thanks, man. Appreciate that. And for those of you that are just joining us, this is kind of some of the last pieces for Mike from Divine Media's car. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate that, man. If I don't get to you guys' comments, I apologize, but it's hard to see through the welding helmet, especially since the camera on the phone actually messes with the auto darkening. Thank you, sir. Guys, on the phone, the chat disappears. So if I don't answer something that you asked me, just ask it again. The purge rate I'm using currently is about, I don't know, 14, 15 CFH. So I got purge hoses coming in this way. It's actually over here. You guys can't see it. And it's running about 15 CFH of argon with the foil on the end, some holes punched in it. I'm running 65 amps. I usually run about 3/4 pedal, so it runs and hovers around 50, 55, 60 sometimes when I get into the pedal. Running the Furic BBW, 330 seconds, 2% lampinated tungsten, CK torch, flex head, water cooled. Pretty typical setup, I think, that a lot of people use for stainless and titanium and things of that nature. So nothing exotic, but just, you know, what I prefer. I think you should be able to do super chat. I know it's turned on. Yeah, and guys, if you do hit that super chat, I thank you so much, man. I don't ever ask for anything, but every little bit helps for sure. One of the super important things about welding like this and welding for a long period of time is just being comfortable. Josh, you know what? What's funny? On my worst day, I can't weld for shit. There are some days where I'm terrible, and then I just gotta stop. Other days, I'm on point. It's just one of those things. Too much caffeine, too much big meals, too much nicotine, you name it. It all cause problems. key with this too is just take your time. Oh, thank you for whoever donated that super chat, man. I super appreciate it. That's awesome. Oh, how old was I? God, I think my father put a MIG welder in my hand when I was about 8 years old. And my first MIG welding project that I did, I was probably 12. And as far as TIG welding goes, I've only been TIG welding for like 5 years maybe. 5 or 6 years. And when I first started, I was terrible at it. Like, absolutely terrible. But just taking your time and going slow and don't try to rush things. That's one of the reasons why I love this so much, is it gives me a chance to just slow down. Slow down and concentrate. That and nobody bothers me when they come in and they see me under the helmet. But the slower and steadier you are, make sure you prop both your hands. You see I got my wire feed hand on this table, and then I got myself propped up on this nice comfortable area here. That helps big time. I don't care how steady you think your hand is. When things start getting hot and you're hanging this hose and you got weight and you're trying to feed things and you're moving around at the same time, you're using all of your extremities to do something different, you gotta be comfortable. Did you guys see that one? Caught a little bit of a chill and dipped the tungsten. Oops. It happens. Thank you. Nice. What hood do you use currently? This is actually a 3M speed glass that I've had for years. Thanks, Russell. Appreciate that. The cost of entry into a basic setup, you know what? I found that Everlast actually has the best entry level stuff. All said and done, on entry level AC/DC, so you can do aluminum as well, I would say count on spending about $2,000 in total. That's the machine, the cart, the bottle, all your consumables, the torch, all your cups, everything that goes with it. Figure on about $2,000. Man, the camera really messes with the auto darkening. It's like blinking like crazy. Alright, so that is the first time I've ever timed that, and we're at about 27 minutes, and I would probably say about 20 of that was actual welding time, so when it comes down to it, imagine doing 100 of these, which is basically what we're doing on Mike's car. So, it's Everlast. They're bright green, you can't miss them. Shut this all off so you guys can actually hear me. All right, now that that's off, let's tilt you down a little bit so I can see you. All right. So here is what it looks like. Completed. We definitely got some good color in there, and the camera doesn't really do it justice. It doesn't want to focus too well on it, but came out pretty good. And I'll show you guys too why we purge this stuff, if you're at all curious, which it seems like a lot of you guys are curious about purge. Ooh, still hot. So I have a couple of pieces here to show you guys that'll demonstrate the difference between purged and not purged, just so you can kind of get an idea. This is 304 stainless, and I use 308 filler. 304 stainless, 308 filler. Alright, so here's a piece of stainless that I welded. On the outside it looks good. And then on the inside, let me clean that up a little bit. The inside actually looks like I welded it. But I didn't weld the inside. This was a purged piece. Welded the outside, and it went straight through to the inside. Now here's an example of not purged. So you can see how nasty all of that is in the middle there. Hey, Mike, we just got done welding some of your car. Look, buddy. Look at the inside of even the inside of the pipe. We're going to have to get you a camera that can go down tubing so you can actually see the inside of all that. But yeah, so that is unpurged versus purged. So the problem now being that this weld on this side is way weaker than the one on this side. And there's all kinds of sugaring. So if this was like a turbo manifold, this all has the opportunity to break off and end up in your turbo. So super expensive. And now where this gets even more prevalent is with good old titanium. So that's what a titanium weld should look like. With the exception of some of that coloring. That coloring shouldn't be there. Should just be the straw color, but you get an idea. And then on the inside, same thing. Goes nice and all the way through. That's purged. Now here's one that looks a lot worse color-wise on the outside, and for very good reason, because unpurged, that's what it looks like. So for those of you who haven't seen my back purging videos, this is a good representation of how bad this stuff actually gets. And one of the reasons is, look, this right here, see how that's getting stuck? That's an actual lip on the inside where that weld didn't actually penetrate the material, and you can see that stuff just flaking off of there. So it's pretty gnarly when you don't back purge it. Now, like I said before, when I'm doing like repairs and stuff, I usually don't back purge because the material on the inside is so dirty to begin with that it doesn't really matter. Unless it's like a turbo manifold, then I gotta clean everything. But if you guys, I want to give you a tour of Mike's car while we're sitting here. Then we'll come back and we'll answer some more questions. But yeah, we'll be able to see the exhaust. Hi, Paul. Although it says you're Alex. So we got the flange that we welded up on there. And then this nice little Y pipe that we made. And then we transition over into the first bender on the diff. And then we drop underneath. We come all the way out to a V-band. And then ultimately we'll come out to the back of the car. Thank you, sir. And here is one of the exhaust tips. Little 4-inch action there. Just got some cardboard in there because we're mocking it up, so these things are going to look pretty sick. And then this is how this one runs. Sorry for the shaky camera. This one runs from here all the way over to here, and we got some more pie cuts. And then, of course, you know, the typical how we were doing it before, but this, if you can get it without my ugly head in the way, it's pretty much what it's going to look like. There you go. Yeah, I actually can't wait to hear it now. It should be done in the next couple hours, I would imagine. I got a little bit more welding to do. We just finished up that last piece of pipe, so that last piece of pipe was what we were ultimately waiting to finish so that we could get this thing all together. Thank you, thank you. Appreciate that, Josh. But yeah, that's what we're working on currently. Yes, sir. It belongs to Mr. Divine. It is his car. And it's people like him that I love when they give me full creative control for the most part, so that I could do something that I don't normally do. But yeah, I enjoy doing stuff like that. So what I figured we'd do in this live, I know there's 14 of you in here now, I think. If you guys have any questions for me, you want to know about anything, just ask away, and I'll do my best to answer it. And we'll see what we can do. It's been absolutely crazy. We just got back Monday night from Adam's open house. Oh, daily driver. That's an interesting question. In the summertime, I drive my 2000 540i 6-speed. In the winter, well, fall, winter, I have a 2001 BMW X5 4.4i. I use that in the winter, fall, winter-ish. And then I just picked up a 2002 Silverado 2500 HD that I put a little bit of work into. So that's what I'm currently driving now when the real shit weather hits here in Connecticut, which is pretty much right now. It's like 20 degrees outside and snow everywhere. My favorite color, blue, is my favorite color. Oh, the best process to start learning. TIG welding has a lot of theory that you need to know before you dive in and spend money that you don't need to spend. So my suggestion would be YouTube. Go on YouTube, look up Weldmonger or Welding Tips and Tricks. There's a gentleman named Jody who literally explains everything you need to know about TIG welding. Not only does he explain it, but on his web store, and this is not a paid ad for him, but this is someone that I look up to very much. On his web store, he has entire DVD sets of TIG welding, MIG welding, stick welding, gas welding, brazing, you name it, he's got it. He's a very, very intelligent, very knowledgeable man, and I spent a lot of time watching his videos and learning from him. So that's probably where I would start. Do some research first from some knowledgeable sources, not some of these other chooches that are on YouTube throwing shit together. But from a knowledgeable source like weldingtipsandtricks.com, the Fabrication Series, Unobtainium Welding, Rampage Fab, all those guys are amazing. And some of them do have step-by-step, weld whatever you want to weld. And it'll teach you what you need, what kind of cup sizes you need, everything else. Because, we've got tons and tons of stuff to go through, and we could go through forever. But that's your best bet. And what was that? Have I gotten a frame job that was too bad to repair? Yeah, actually, it was a Ford Ranger that pretty much broke in half, right behind the cab. And not only was the center section of the frame gone and broken, but the entire rear section where the springs mount was gone also. So that was probably the only one that I turned away because there was no way to fix that without doing a whole back half of the frame because it was just gone. There was nothing even left to the top side of the frame. It was just completely shot. So I did turn that one away. But other than that, the Jeeps, I've never turned a Jeep away. I've been able to fix every one of them that I had in here. Oh my God, Brad, I get in so much trouble. Sherry is constantly yelling at me because if I find a paperclip, that's what happens to it. And unfortunately, we run out of paper clips. But now that I have little pieces of welding wire, I stopped touching her paper clips. It's just a habit. I bend them into shapes and do all kinds of crazy stuff with them. But yeah, she's so mad. Where are my paper clips? Well, that one's a horse. That one's a dog. That one's a yo-yo. She doesn't appreciate my artwork. Yeah, it's been so long since I did a live, I don't even know what to talk about anymore. If you're curious on how we made that Y-pipe, there's the pieces that we cut. We made two 45-degree angles, cut the back sides of them off, and then welded them together. No, you know what? A machine is a machine, to be totally honest with you. I've TIG welded with car batteries and had the same exact result as I have with my $5,000 worth of equipment over here. The only thing that you get out of a better welder is more option, like pulse options and, pre and post flow settings and ramp up, ramp down, all kinds of stuff, frequency adjustments. It's the only thing you're going to get with a better machine. As long as you have a stable arc on the current machine that you're using, a new machine's not going to make you a better welder. It might make you a more efficient welder, but it's not going to make you a better welder by any means. Yeah, I mean, some welders, a better welder will have a better duty cycle, but I'd be totally honest with you, when you're TIG welding, you got to be TIG welding some big shit for a long ass time to hit the duty cycle on any of these TIG welders. I mean, even on my MIG, the only time I ever hit duty cycle limit on my MIG is when I'm doing the Jeep frames and I try to run a 6-foot long bead. And it'll hit the duty cycle after the second one. But, I mean, that's not even necessarily a consideration. But I usually buy my stuff based on the support that it has, what I think about the company, and all that stuff. And you know what? Everlast has been absolutely amazing. I've had this welder now, I think, for 3 years, and it's been flawless. I've had no issue with it whatsoever. And it's half the price of the Millers and all the other stuff, so way better. Yeah, thermodynamics is nice. I had one of their plasma cutters years ago. I loved it. It was great. But when I bought this Everlast setup, I was kind of on a budget. I had about $5,000 to spend, and I wanted to make sure I got a water-cooled machine. Yeah, absolutely. Portability is great. Lift arc kind of sucks, but you know what? Once you get good at it, it's just like anything else. Doesn't even really matter. I mean, there are times when this thing, the high frequency will run out, or I'll have a dead spot in the material or a bad ground or something, and I'll have to just touch it to the material and just do a scratch start. But yeah, so like I was saying, we just got back from Florida. Went to Adam LZ's open house. That was a blast. Passion, if you're just starting, probably the 210 EXT because that one's AC/DC and has some pretty nice features in it. It's a feature-rich machine for a pretty decent price. I have the 255 EXT and I don't need anything more. Yeah, it definitely is easier with the pedal, for sure, because then you can modulate. Yeah, you definitely a lot easier with a pedal, so you can kind of roll into it, roll back out of it, taper off, and not leave a giant crater. But you know what? If you're doing stuff that needs to be welded and you're not worried about aesthetics, as long as you don't have a crack at that crater, you're doing good. Did I ever do any racing? When I was younger, I raced dirt bikes, but nothing car-wise. I did the Skip Barber School of Racing, so I have those certificates and a few other odds and ends, but I never really got into it. I like building them more so than I do actually racing them because I'm not a very competitive person by nature, so I didn't have that drive to do any kind of racing. My favorite kind of welding, pie cuts, as you guys know, as you guys see in pretty much all my videos. I never took a course, no. I I never took any lessons, as a matter of fact, with anything. My father taught me how to MIG and stick weld, and from there, about 6 or 7 years ago, I bought a TIG welder. No, it was probably about 5 years ago. About 5 years ago, I bought a Miller Diversion 185 and taught myself how to TIG weld. I literally sat at this very bench that we're sitting at now for weeks upon weeks upon weeks before I could even manage to stick two pieces of tube together without blowing holes in it. And I mean, I still have, I don't think I have any of the practice pieces that I was doing on stainless. Oh yeah, I do. These are some of my first practice welds, like literally right after I bought the machine. You can see I was blowing holes in the end of the tube trying to stick it together. It was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I couldn't figure out what the hell I was doing. I was so terrible at it. I mean, there's a huge difference between that and that guy. So yeah, it definitely I was not good. I was not good at all. So I would literally at the end of every one of my days, because I don't know if you guys know, but I do general repair as well. So at the end of my day, I would sit down and I would literally put the hood on, turn the welder on, turn the argon on, and just lay beads all day and all night long. I sometimes sit at my table until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and would literally just sit and lay bead after bead after bead. It was crazy. And even still to this day. I mean, I just did this a couple weeks ago. That's my heater, by the way. It's a little loud. But yeah, I just did this one a couple weeks ago. And this was literally just aluminum practice because I have a major problem still with consistency on aluminum. So I sat for about 2 hours and just played with giant plates of aluminum and kept welding and welding and welding and welding and welding, and you know, I got better, but I don't do enough aluminum. I do stainless and titanium mostly. So when it comes to aluminum, I have a hard time. So every chance that I get, I try to pick up some aluminum and go crazy with it. You know, like I have some chunks of aluminum pipe here that are left over from Tommy's GTST build that I'll end up practicing with. I'll end up cutting it up and welding it, just see if I can gain some more consistency with it. But yeah, some days with aluminum I'm great. Other days I'm absolutely horrendous and I can't figure it out. I mean, for the most part with stainless I got that down. I can do it. It takes me 2 or 3 minutes to get into the groove. Once I'm in the groove, I'm good. With aluminum, I don't have a groove. It angers me all the time. And yeah, with aluminum, the Chinese stuff can be either great or terrible. Vibrant stuff lately has been garbage to weld. This stuff that I got, which is pretty much just raw aluminum, cleans up super nice. You don't have that shiny layer on it. You take a Scotch Brite to it and it looks amazing afterwards. You don't even have to polish it or anything. It looks incredible. But that stuff welds nice. I have no problem with that stuff. So material does make it. But yeah, practicing is, I can't stress that enough, especially if you're just learning. You're going to mess up. I mean, even to this day, you guys see the stuff that I post all the time, and there are days where it's just terrible. I still have struggles. I have struggles with stop starts. I have struggles with aluminum. I have struggles with remembering to turn fans off so that it doesn't blow my argon away every time I'm doing something. There's always something there. There's always ways to improve. And, I know guys that have been welding for 20 years that still, to this day, are learning new stuff. And that's just kind of how it works. It's a never-ending process. So if you're going to get into it, you're going to get into it with the intention of doing it to make money, then you had better be good at it, because people will kill you, especially with social media. So you better make sure that you're doing it right. Otherwise, social media will hand you your ass, basically, and shut your business down. So you have to be conscious of that as well. So another suggestion I make to a lot of people is, when you're first learning how to weld, don't do it on everybody else's car. Do it on yours. Go pick up scrap metal for you to do. Do not start by, welding other people's shit and praying that it holds together. I've seen some pretty gnarly stuff come through the shop from people who are learning to weld, and instead of learning to weld on their own stuff, decided to learn to weld on everybody else's shit and caused all kinds of problems. So, and dangerous problems too. Like welding knuckles and stuff they shouldn't be welding to begin with. Just a nightmare. So make sure that you're sticking to your own stuff until you get competent enough. And even when you think you're competent enough, have a competent welder who's been doing it for a while check over your stuff, because they might find some problems. I know when I first started TIG welding, I wasn't using enough heat. So what was happening was all of my welds were not penetrating fully. So all my welds were not strong. And, when I first started welding stainless steel, I was only welding it at 25, 35 amps. And I thought I was doing a great job because it looked amazing. But they weren't strong enough. So I had someone who had been welding for 25 plus years, and they took a look at it and, said, hey, you need to turn your heat up a little bit. You need to turn your amperage up. You need to be right around, between, depending on the material, 1 amp per thousandths of thickness. So the stainless that we weld is 65 thousandths thick. Set the machine at 65 thousandths. Use the pedal to modulate the rest. And that's pretty much what I've been going through and to, is whenever I weld a material, I usually use that rule. 1 amp per thousandths of thickness. So 65 thousandths, 65 amps. 100 thousandths, 100 amps. Quarter inch, 250 thousandths, 250 amps. And then you can modulate that with the pedal. So a lot of learning. Real lot of learning. But it's fun. I enjoy it. It's one of the things that I can do to calm my days down a little bit and, just relax. It actually helps. Yeah, you do. You do. It takes a lot of time. Later, man. Takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of frustration. And you got to be willing to work through all that in order to become a decent welder. So, But it pays off in the end. It really pays off because then you can start doing, bigger projects like the stuff that I've got here, and you start doing bigger projects, and people start finding out about you, and once people start finding out about you, it's great. What torch setup do I use for aluminum? Well, I use my CK20 water cooled with a gas lens, and this guy is always my aluminum cup, my go-to, my number 6 aluminum cup for my gas lens. I run about 12 CFH of gas flow, the 332 tungsten, and a little number 6. And sometimes a number 4 if I have to get into a tight spot, but usually the number 6. Light blue, same thing, 2% lanthanated. Yeah, I only use 12 CFM on aluminum. I found that anything higher with a gas lens, and it starts to give me all sorts of trouble. Start pushing the puddle around where I don't want it, and it starts including all kinds of garbage in it and stuff. So I just stick to 12 CFH. Yeah, Jerry, that's the same thing. I picked it up. I hated it at first, and then once I figured out how to do it, it was actually much better. Yeah, Facebook groups help a lot. I was lucky enough to be able to get in contact with some of the bigger, YouTube welders. Yeah, give it a shot, man. Lower the gas flow because I notice like, when I'm running the big cups like you just saw me weld on the stainless here, these Gigantor things here. I mean, that's a number 16. It's massive. And I run like 30 CFH, 28 to 30 CFH on that cup. And I noticed that like 15, 20 CFH on the smaller cup, I was getting a lot of turbulence. And no, I don't ball the tip. I weld everything with a pointed electrode. The only difference is, I don't know if you could see this tungsten right now. So that's what I do for stainless. You can't really see the damn thing. This doesn't focus well. Yeah, it's an inverter machine. I have a pretty sharp point on this right now. What I'll do is when I'm doing aluminum, instead of having a very tight point, I'll widen it out and shorten it a little bit, and then just let the electrode naturally ball itself, which with an inverter machine it doesn't ball very much. Because I usually weld everything at about 150 hertz or so. Yeah, yeah. The inverter machine's a pointed electrode is fine. I tried a whole bunch of stuff. I tried like that aluminum plate I just showed you guys. I tried balling the electrode and going through all that stuff, and it welded like shit. So I keep a pointed electrode. I think what the balled electrode was good for was like pure tungsten on a transformer machine running 60 hertz. It seemed to work much better than that. With the inverter machines now, I mean, being able to set your AC frequency, I usually go between 120 and 150 hertz, and I found that's what gives me the best result. And a pointed electrode gives me that control over my arc starts and all that stuff, so I can have a more consistent startup. I can start up on edges. I can do all kinds of stuff without blowing it away. At 60 hertz with a balled electrode, you can't start on a super thin tube edge. It'll just blow it right away. You got to start inboarding, work your way out. Oh yeah, as long as that sucker's working, man, hang on to it. No sense in giving up something that's still working unless you need more features. I love the Miller Dynasty series. Absolutely love them. They are a great, great machine. The only thing that stopped me from buying a Dynasty was the cost. I mean, the Everlast 255 EXT with the water cooler and all the accessories, I want to say it was like 3,500 bucks. The Miller was 8 grand. So you kind of tell me. And I mean, Miller, when I had my diversion, I called them for service a couple of times because I had some problems with it. And they basically were like, well, you don't have $1 million worth of equipment. We don't want to help you. And I found that Everlast was half the price, and their customer service was impeccable. It was absolutely amazing. So I went with Everlast, and I don't regret it. It welds just as good as my Miller did. Hello, sir. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you? Yeah, Miller makes really nice stuff, and if I could afford it, I probably would have bought a Miller, just because. Um, but I didn't have the money at the time. Nice, nice. Yeah, I figured, you know what? It's a Thursday night. It's quiet for one of the first times ever, and I hadn't done a live in God quite a while. So I figured I'd come on and say what's up, see what you guys are all up to, answer some questions. Because we've been doing a lot of work here lately. All right, hold on. Yeah, hit that thumbs up, please. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna run and grab a drink. I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. How do I feel about the AHP machines like this? They're pretty good. They're pretty good. They, yeah, flux core strong enough. You just gotta do it right. The AHP machines are pretty good. They're just an inexpensive version with knobs and dials instead of digital readouts and shit, but they work. They work fine. Yeah, I have no issue with it. Even the Harbor Freight machines are halfway decent. Yes, sir. Yeah, flux core. Believe it or not, flux core is actually really good, and people just don't give it enough credit. I mean, flux core is even great on non-prepped rusty ass metal. You can burn through a lot with flux core wire. You just have to make sure that you have enough amperage, and you have to make sure that you are pushing it hard. Like if you put 35 thousandths flux core in a 110 volt MIG welder, you're not going to get a good result just because you can't get enough amperage to burn that stuff in there. So if you can do, 35 thousandths flux core and you have a good 110 volt welder that's not on 70 feet of extension cord, and you crank it up to a point where it's hot enough and you really burn that stuff in there, then you're good. But there's a right way and a wrong way to do everything, and 9 times out of 10, oh my God, the shit I see come through here is absolutely unreal. Somebody goes to Harbor Freight and buys a flux core welder, goes home, and just blow snot all over everything. I mean, I think I even have some pieces down here. Yeah. You guys are going to love this one. So there's an example of a... Yeah, man, I can weld that for you. Just bring it by the house. That's what it looks like when you don't use enough amperage with flux core. It's just disgusting. Oh, that's not even a bad one. I know there's more somewhere. I cut them out and I save them just so I could show you guys. This shit's hysterical. But that's one of them. That came off of a Honda? Yeah. That was the header, the back half of a header on the Honda. Oh, that's nothing. Right, let me see if I can find something a little bit better for you. Oh, yeah. Oh, we got a good one. Hold on. So this this one came in because he said the electronic cutout was leaking. Check this out. There you go. There's some good ones. What do you think of those? Yeah. This is the shit that I fix all the time, man. Look, that's a bolt. That's an actual nut and bolt. And no, it didn't. It didn't penetrate at all. Nothing on the inside. But yeah, that's the shit that I deal with. So, yeah. Obviously, the leak was not coming from the electronic cutout, which I now own, which is awesome. I had a free electronic cutout out of the deal. But that's only a very, very small part of what I cut out of people's vehicles every day. Most of them look like porcupines with all the wire hanging off of the exhaust system. And the scary part is, all these people are local to me and they know that I weld. And they also know that I have no problem helping someone out. You know, if you want tips or tricks or whatever, I'll give them to you. I'm not the guy who's going to hide everything. So, you know, I always encourage everybody, if you've got a question, just ask me. I'd be more than happy to teach you so that I don't have to fix it later. I mean, although I enjoy the money from it, it just, some of that stuff can turn into an absolute nightmare. I mean, I can't tell you how many exhaust systems I scrapped on people's cars because I'm like, listen, there's no fixing this and I'm not putting my name on it because the rest of it is crap. So that's all I need is to put my name on some shit like that. But I swear to God, some of the stuff people do, I swear they just close their eyes and hope for the best. Because it's bad. I know I had a real gnarly one that I saved, but I don't remember where the hell it is. Because truthfully, that's not even the worst one that I got. I literally had one that looked like a porcupine. It must have had 30 pieces of wire hanging off of it. It was insane. Oh, that was funny. That, the one for Anton, that was hysterical. It did end up cracking like I had told him it would. But that was just something that we were doing to see if it would even be something that was feasible, something that would work. So it was just kind of a joke. And it did hold all the way until he got home and put the manifold on the car and ran it through a heat cycle and it cracked. But that was just a temporary. He got the proper manifold and he cut everything off and ground. We welded it so that you could reuse the turbo. It was funny. But it did work for a little while. You know what, A-Train? No, I haven't done Inconel yet. and I want to, but the stuff is so expensive. Like I need to buy some and try it. Yeah, that's another thing with pricing. It's so hard because people want the world, but won't pay for it. And that's the tough part because, an exhaust like I'm doing on Mike's car is not cheap. Not cheap at all. I mean, when you're talking probably at least 10 to 15 hours of just welding, and that's just sitting down and welding. That doesn't include the fabrication part of it. Um, and routing all the piping and getting all the bends made and getting all the cuts right and all that other stuff. I mean, you're probably talking 30 hours in this exhaust system, and it's just literally a catback, but it's all pie cut and it needs to fit right, and the car's slammed to the ground on bags, so it really needs to be as tucked up as possible. The car had 1.25 inch exhaust on it before, now it's got 3 inch. So there's a lot that goes into it that people just don't get. Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, the Inconel stuff I've been wanting to try so bad. Like, it took me a while to get titanium figured out. And now that I've got titanium figured out, I want to move on to something else. But I just can't really find a use for Inconel right now, other than maybe doing like turbo manifolds or something. Yeah, I could do that. But again, finding somebody that's willing to pay for it, that's the problem. Why pay $2,200 for a set of custom made headers when you can go on Summit and buy them for $300, or you can go on CX Racing and get them for $100? People just don't want to pay the money. But then you do get people that, every now and then will come in and say, here's a blank check, go for it. But I don't know. One of these days, I'm hoping to get to a point where I'm well known enough and well trusted enough to do some of the higher end cars, like, some of the Porsches and Lamborghinis and just some of the higher end stuff where the people actually have money and can do that kind of stuff. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love being able to help out people who don't have a whole lot of money because, I'm one of those people. But at the other point, too, is I need to make a living. So I'm hoping that I can get some of the bigger names in here. And we've actually got a couple of cool vehicles coming in the next few weeks. We've got a 56 Delray, which basically kind of looks like a Bel Air, but it's a Delray. And then a 41 Ford pickup. We got a T-Bucket that's coming in at some point. So I'm going to try to get into that. Yeah, that's why, you know what? I want to do Inconel so bad, but I just can't stomach buying Inconel to practice on. It's a tough scenario. But one of these days I'll get there. We'll figure it out. Maybe I can find somebody that's willing to cover materials and I'll cover labor if they let me do their car. But it would have to be something relatively high end, I would imagine, to even be worth putting Inconel on. Because I'd love to do a system with an Inconel header and then, maybe full titanium exhaust. I think that would be a kick-ass system. But one of these days, we'll get there eventually. We're just starting to really get known out there now, so things are going well. Social media helps huge, between YouTube and all the YouTubers that I've worked with and everything else. It really helps to get your name out there. And It's also very difficult too because you have to be 100%. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And what is it that you need done? What kind of work do you need done? Ooh, those are some of my favorite. What kind of vehicle? Oh, so you're going to make my life difficult because of all the amazing amounts of room that are in the EP3 engine bay. Is it a turbo car, I'm assuming? Yeah, I've messed around with EP3s. My buddy Dre's got one, and we did some stuff on that, and there's not a lot of room in there. And that and the motor is basically in the freaking dashboard. That doesn't help either. But yeah, I'd definitely be up for it. Like I said, I'm assuming it's a turbo car with the typical manifold that you find on all those, where turbo sits over on the driver's side. Yeah. Yeah, we could definitely make something work for sure. Those are just a little difficult because the brake master and all that other stuff, so you kind of come over to the left behind the motor and then up. But yeah, we can figure something out for sure. I haven't had a chance to try an ESOB Rebel, but from what I hear, they're great. I have an ESOB plasma cutter that after I put a different torch on it, it's been absolutely amazing. But ESOB stuff is always, it seems like it's hard to get. It's hard to get parts for. It's hard to maintain. So I never really went the ESOB way. All right, Dean, first, what is it that you're trying to do? What are you trying to weld? And I'll tell you if it's worth it or not. Because truth be told, if you're just starting out in TIG welding, I highly recommend that you use just the normal stuff that comes with the welder. There goes my heater again. Um, if you're doing aluminum, I wouldn't even bother with the Furic stuff, to be totally honest with you. You do a ton of aluminum piping, just a regular, this is the cup I use for aluminum, right here. It's just a number 6 with a gas lens. I don't use any Furic stuff for that. That's it. That does all my aluminum. Intercoolers, intercooler piping. I did all of the catch cans and battery boxes and all that stuff is this number 6 alumina cup. That's it. You do not need Furyk stuff for that. Sometimes you can overdo it with the cups. Start using cups that you don't need to use. And actually, truth be told, one of the things that I noticed when I started TIG welding is no, pulse is not just for aluminum. You can use pulse on everything. Especially when you're doing welds without filler wire. Like if you're doing a flange weld or something and the flange is super thick and the piping's not, you can utilize pulse to blow the material from the flange in. So no, you can definitely do it. Favorite material to weld on is titanium. I love titanium. Love welding that stuff. It comes out so good, but the problem with titanium is it photographs like shit. So even after you've done, like, you guys won't be able to see this, and I could polish it up a little bit, but this weld right here has some of the most amazing ripples in it and little cracks and like just stuff that titanium does. This weld looks amazing, but you cannot see it on camera. All it looks like is just a shiny what the hell, but it looks incredible in person. Yeah, titanium is my favorite. That and it doesn't weigh anything, so moving it around is kind of nice. What kind of trouble did you have with it, team? Did you get the issue that everybody gets with titanium where the filler rod was sticking to the material? Because that was the biggest problem that I had, was every time I went to weld titanium, I would get the filler rod stuck to the material, go to pull the filler rod off, and the material would move. Oh, wow. Yeah, I want to try the Inconel stuff. Couldn't keep the color out of it. Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough one. I use the big Furyk cup that you just saw me using on the stainless. I use that for my titanium, and I tend to run very short beads, like 1 inch long max. And I also make sure, this is stupid and it sounds ridiculous, but make sure there's not a single breeze in the room when you're welding it. Anything that could potentially blow argon away from it, get rid of it. So even breathing, like I noticed when I flipped my helmet up and let a breath out, I was blowing argon away and it's screwed. But I don't know what machine you have, but my machine, I can set a really high post flow. I can set like 1.5 minutes of post flow. And usually what I do is I'll set it to 20 seconds of post flow and just weld 1 inch and hang on it. And then weld 1 inch and hang on it. And you can pretty much take the color right out of it. I mean, I don't know if maybe I'll tack these two pieces together and weld them out real quick, but see if we can keep the color out of it. But as far as prep work goes, I usually just, the stuff I buy from Tycon comes so clean already. I try to hit it with a little bit of acetone, and then we'll go from there. That cleans it up pretty good, and then you don't have to worry too much about it, but I think that's actually what I'm going to do. Let me set this up for you guys. We'll weld these two chunks of titanium together. Let's see if we can purge it too. There we go. All right, let's see. I don't know, guys. This titanium filler is looking a little oxidized. Well, let's fire up the welder and see what happens. Yeah, I bet. Fixing stuff like that is crazy. All right. See if we can weld this out real quick. Fit up isn't the greatest, so we'll see what happens. Throw a little point on this electrode. There we go. A nice little point on that now. Let's see if we can do this. And then what I'll do a lot of times on titanium too is I'll hang the electrode out about an inch. And what that does for me is it actually gives me more torch height, which gives you better argon coverage. So we'll weld out, I don't know, about an inch or so of this at a time. See how it comes out. Throw a little tack on it first. All right, let's kick up our post flow a little bit. All right, so we got 20 seconds on the post flow. We got some purge gas going in there. Let's see what we can do. Not too bad. And maybe we'll run a couple of beads just for some practice on the actual tube itself. The thing about titanium is if you don't get it hot enough, it gets real sticky, real gummy. It's like chewing gum. The weirdest thing. Yeah, we just got a breeze. I breathed on it. Alright, so you guys will get to see some interesting stuff here. Alright. So currently my heater is running, and you'll be able to see why that's a problem, because I didn't turn my argon flow up. I'll show you in a sec how I feed wire. But what you're going to notice that's very interesting about this is with the heater on and the slight breeze and the lack of argon, I'll show you what it does. So you can see right before the heater came on, that one in the middle right there was with no breeze. And all these other ones are just the little tiny breeze that's coming from the heater that is behind me that's blowing downwards and blowing away the argon coverage. So I would turn my argon up to about 40 CFH and have much less of a problem. And you can even see that even though we were running a back purge, it wasn't enough. We needed to run more back purge too. So huge problem. Titanium is funny like that. And even the weld that we previously did, that weld right there, you can see came out really, really nice. The first one we did. But, yeah, titanium's a funny animal. And I usually make sure everything is completely dead silent, no breeze, no nothing. Argon flow through the roof, and it uses a ton of argon because not only you're purging the crap out of it, but you're hitting the top of it with a ton of argon too. And I go through a lot. I go through a lot. But as for wire feeding, so I have two methods that I use mainly. The first method is I just hold it and I dab it like this. And yeah, it probably wasn't good enough argon coverage. That's the case. You need a really big cup and a shit ton of argon, and it'll come out colorless every time. And even you see those were colorless until that little breeze hit, and then boom, you get a ton of color in them, and a ton of oxidation, all kinds of other crap. But so the first method I use, I hold it like a pencil and just dab, dab, dab. And the other method I use is I pinch it between my thumb and my finger, and I hold it between these two fingers, and then all I do is this. So what I'll do is as I'm welding, I'll just push it forward and pull, forward and pull, forward and pull. And I use that method a lot when I'm doing aluminum because you really need to be firing wire in there when you're doing aluminum. You use, God, 3 times the amount of wire that you would use when you're doing stainless or titanium or anything. So I tend to use this method a lot when I'm doing aluminum. And you can get pretty accurate with it. I used to literally just sit around and do this all day long just to get comfortable with feeding the wire in one location. Because, I mean, you can really keep it in a specific location if you're trying hard enough. And as long as your hand is propped. But that's the main method I use for when I'm really trying to get a shit ton of wire in there all at once without having to keep moving my hand. Because what happens is if you're like this and you're just dabbing, eventually the wire gets up to about here and you start cooking your fingers. And you got to stop. And you got to pull the wire out and then start again. So being able to actually get some wire in there and get it fed like that. And it's actually easier to do when you got a glove on. So I'll take the wire in my glove like this, and you can feed it a lot faster with the glove on because it doesn't hurt your hand. So that's how I feed most of the time, like I said, on aluminum and stuff. But for stainless, I'm only running a short distance, so I'll just grab it like this and dab it. Same thing with titanium. So little thing you can practice at home. Just sit there with a piece of wire and just start messing around. And sometimes you could even, if you have more control with your middle finger, you can do it that way. Or if you're in a really awkward position, you can do it with your little finger and your ring finger, or whatever you want to do. However you feel comfortable is fine. I mean, you can totally not even use your fingers and just use your thumb to push it. That works too. There's a whole bunch of ways to do it. There was a challenge going around that was funny as hell. It was the one-handed welding challenge. And people were using, this method and actually feeding the wire while they were using the torch. So, haven't tried that one yet because there's really no reason to, but thought it was funny. But yeah, wire feeding's one of them. And then also too, practice with your right hand and your left hand because it's good to be able to do everything with both hands. So, when you can actually feed wire with both hands, and you can operate the torch with both hands, and you can operate your foot pedal with both feet, you're going to be more efficient. Because there's times when you get into these weird positions and everything else, you really need to be able to get into some awkward positions and weld with different hands and stuff. So that's one of the practice tips I can give you as well, is make sure that you're ambidextrous when it comes to welding, even if you're not in normal everyday life. It'll help you significantly. Can't tell you how many times I have to weld with my left hand. We covered this in the beginning, but I don't think you were here. I've been full-time TIG welding at my shop for, it's got to be 5 years, 5 or 6 years now. Before that, I was MIG welding since I was about 12 years old. And like I said, when I was about 8, I think my dad put a MIG torch in my hand and let me go to town. And I've been in love with it ever since. So it's been a while. I mean, I started MIG welding pretty regularly when I was 12, and I'm 43 now. So what's that? 31 years? Ish? Somewhere around there. And then TIG welding, pretty hardcore for the past 5 or 6 years. But I do it almost every day, so you get a lot of practice. That and doing all these pie cuts. Every single one of these exhausts is like a year's worth of schooling. Because, I mean, everything on this exhaust is pie cut, including the tips. This is one of the 4-inch exhaust tips that are going on Mike's car. And you guys can see that that was heavily purged. And the welds on the inside pretty much look as good as the welds on the outside. But it's been a while. You know, and I'm sure I was like a lot of you guys too, where I picked up the TIG welder after MIG welding for 30 years. I was like, yeah, no problem. I got this. I'm good. I can do this, whatever. Picked it up and was terrible at it. Absolutely terrible. But figured it out. Figured it out. But anywho, I think I'm going to, let's see. So do we get to hear the SC when it's done? Yes. Yes. I am in the process of making a video on the whole process. I even got some nice in-helmet welding footage, which is super cool. So you'll be able to see the actual arc and everything else. That'll probably happen tomorrow. I think I'm going to post that video, so keep an eye out for that. But my phone is at like 10%, so I think I'm going to tell you guys good night. And thanks for watching. And I will see you all very, very soon. So, yeah, if you guys have any other questions, feel free anytime. Comment on any of my videos. I usually try to respond to everything. So, hit me up. You can even DM me on Instagram, whatever you want to do. Have a wonderful night, guys. And thanks again for hanging out. I appreciate it.